This next dish is going to be a really great option if you're going to a summer picnic or a barbecue and you want something to bring that's just a little out of the ordinary, but still really fresh and full of nice spring flavors. So, to get started, we have some cooked pasta. Okay, and you can use whatever kind you like, just make sure it doesn't have eggs in it. And I got this really neat pasta. I'm going to add that to a bowl here. And the next thing we're going to do is use some tofu. Now, if you've ever seen a pasta dish that has some ricotta cheese mixed into it with some cracked black pepper and some lemon, that's kind of the inspiration for this dish today. But of course, instead of a ricotta cheese, we're going to use some tofu to give it that kind of texture and mouth feel. Now, one thing you want to do with tofu is if you freeze it while it's still in its container, in its water-packed container, and this is an extra firm tofu, go ahead and put that in the freezer and then let it defrost and then use it. And through the magic of food science, just that little procedure will make the tofu stay nice and kind of like crumbly instead of getting really whipped together. So it's going to give that texture of more of a ricotta cheese, which is what we want. Okay, and once the water is pressed out of it, I'm going to just crumble it over a plate. And you're just kind of crumbling it with your fingers. But since we froze it, it's a little more firm. Okay, so the tofu's over here, our pasta's over here. Now we're gonna make the basil mint lemon oil that we're gonna drizzle on top of all of our pasta. So, get your blender, and we're gonna add a half cup of packed basil. Really just use as much as you have and keep a couple leaves set aside so that you can garnish it later. So we're just gonna set a couple of those over there and get those big bulky stems off. And rough chop it really quick just to help it move along, and throw this into the blender. Okay. And then we're going to take just a little bit of fresh mint, and that's going to help pair really nicely with those fresh peas. So you don't want a ton of mint. You're going to definitely want to use more basil, but probably about a tablespoon or two of fresh mint. Okay. Then the juice of 1/2 of a lemon, and save the other half of the lemon so when you are plating it up at the end, you can squeeze that on top. Okay, and then I have 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to finish it off with a 1/4 cup of oil. All right. So that's everything for the sauce. Let's get this blended. Ooh, okay. So now I'm going to use my hands to mix this because this pasta has a lot of little crevices in it, and I think it'll just get in there a little bit easier if I do that. Look at that green color. So already this is ready to go for the springtime. And that fresh garlic and lemon juice, oh my gosh, it smells so good. I think basil is one of my favorite scents. Okay. All right, get your hands in there. And the reason that we are mixing it kind of separately like this instead of adding the tofu to the blender is, again, we want that tofu to stay kind of crumbly and look like, you know, ricotta cheese is mixed through it instead of being like all whipped up together. And then we're just mixing this first, again, because that pasta has so many little crevices in it for the oil to get into. So this will help it. There we go. Now it'll be blended really well, instead of hiding out underneath some of the other ingredients. Our pasta has that basil oil all mixed through, and now we're just going to chop a few more fresh herbs to have them in kind of bigger pieces throughout the dish. Okay, so they come out in these nice long like ribbons. So I'm gonna add that to the dish, and we're gonna add a little bit more fresh mint. Use fresh herbs for this, guys. Don't even mess around with the dried stuff. Just spend the extra dollar or two, or go into your neighbor's garden. It's gonna be worth it. Hopefully your neighbors are nice. So we have that, and now we're gonna add some fresh peas. And if you can find really good, like fresh farmer's market spring peas, use them. And if you can't, you can get like a nice bag of flash frozen peas and just let them defrost. Don't put them in the microwave. Don't try to heat them up in any way. Just let them defrost on your counter and then use them. And now we're adding that tofu in. And once again, we're gonna mix everything with our hands because that's gonna be a little more gentle. There we go. Look how pretty and green that is. All right, and once we have that done, we get our nice big bowl and go ahead and plate everything. And you can see how that tofu kind of takes on that ricotta cheese kind of texture. And it's gonna taste, you know, just like the basil and everything that we put in it. There we go. Oh my gosh, that looks so pretty. And how easy was this, right? And it's cheap. You get this huge amount for not a lot of money. Okay. We're ready to make the last component of this dish, and this is going to be kind of a tempeh bacon crumble. So we're kind of using a tempeh bacon recipe that I've made on the show before, but instead of cutting it into strips, we're just going to crumble it up and then kind of place it all on top of this pasta dish. So the tempeh I'm using today is a 5-grain tempeh, so you can use whatever kind you want. There's some that's just made with soy, and that's it. This has a couple other things going on. And just crumble this up into little pieces. There we go. And it's okay that it's kind of crumbly because once it gets cooking, those pieces are gonna cook and they're gonna brown and they're gonna get crispy, and then there's gonna be like these little crispy bits on top of the pasta. So we're gonna start with the marinade for that crumble. And this is a tablespoon of olive oil, a tablespoon of maple syrup, that's a pure maple syrup, a tablespoon of Bragg's aminos or tamari sauce. Whisk that together. Okay, and now our dry ingredients. A half of a tablespoon of smoked paprika, a fourth of a teaspoon of cumin, and a fourth teaspoon of garlic powder. Get all of that in there. And then just a few little shakes of liquid smoke. And remember, liquid smoke is just the condensation from inside of a wood smoker. So it's just basically flavored water. And we only want to use like 2 or 3 little shakes of it because this stuff is strong and you don't want it to be too overwhelming. All right, so let's add that to the pan. And we're gonna get everything a good mix. And you'll notice that there's not too much sauce, there's just enough to coat everything. So that'll help it brown up really well. Okay, let's get this over to the stove. Okay, so there it is. And this is just after about 5 or 10 minutes. You wanna kind of let it sit in there and brown a little bit and then mix it again and keep browning it. And this smells delicious. And this is gonna be a really nice contrast to all those fresh ingredients. So just pour that right on top. And I'm gonna kind of put it in like a little pile. We'll top it with that fresh lemon juice from that 1/2 of a lemon that we had earlier. And if you're so inclined, a little bit of crushed red pepper, why not? And we are all set. This is our delicious spring pasta dish with a tempeh bacon crumble, some fresh herbs, some fresh spring peas. I think your guests are gonna love it.